Slick, surprising and unbelievably groundbreaking are words used to describe the cut of my fashion sense, my cheeky sense of humour, my ability to pull birds and indeed rile them with pap about my younger days as David Hasselhoff's understudy. They've also been used to describe Nintendo's I Can't Believe It's Not on Super Nintendo classic sequel Link's Awakening, which retains the look and feel of a classic Zelda adventure and does away with Link's home entirely and whisks him to the shores of Koholint Island just south of Wolverhampton off the M6. Yes indeed, a forgiving Ganon a wee Glasgow kiss, pulling Zelda and generally milking his exploits for months to come. Old Link gets cold feet, pops to his local cash converters to sell the Triforce for a truckload of cash and sets sail for new adventures. After having one too many lager shandies and Jaeger bombs and with a very heavy storm on hand to ruin his boat, Link wakes up on this strange new island and must set about waking some bloke up called the Windfish, who can only be woken up with 8 musical instruments or a best of Wham collection. With the mighty duo being absent however, Link must traverse his new environment, win friends, influence people and pull some birds. Oh yeah, he does also need to conquer 8 all new dungeons which have been fiendishly crafted to give Link to the Past players a serious run for their money. Yes indeed, it looks like Hyrule, smells like Hyrule, but Koholint Island is a very different place, and whilst Zelda players will find comfort in the familiar controls and gameplay, everything seems to have been drastically altered, and despite this title, Zelda isn't even in the game, which to be honest I'm certainly not complaining about, as new love interest Marin seems much more relaxed than Zelda ever was, and even Tarin, her father, likes Link, so marriage seems very likely. You wake up in Marin and Tarin's gaff, and after being handed your shield, you are then prompted to head to the beach to retrieve your sword, and this is where the game takes a different turn from its predecessors. An owl appears and tells you where to go, and also hints at what you need to do. Whilst this is very easy in the beginning to figure out, I love the cryptic nature of the later tasks, with the player very much having to try and figure out what to do for themselves. Now, many Game Boy titles at the time, such as Mario Land 1 and 2, were very different from their NES counterparts, and would feature new and unique abilities and worlds. Link's Awakening is no different. Nintendo could have easily just cut and pasted another version of A Link to the Past, which, just like recent episodes of EastEnders, would have been an absolute winner. What they chose to do instead was to double down and really create a sequel that would surpass A Link to the Past in every way, or at least give it a good run for its money. Very brave indeed. Now please, before the Zelda purists kick my door down and give me a good kicking, I want to say I love A Link to the Past. I think it's a true classic and deserves all the praise it gets. Link's Awakening, however, was in fact my first Zelda experience, and having gone through the game and then played A Link to the Past after, I kind of prefer Link's Awakening. Maybe if I'd have played A Link to the Past first, I would probably be singing a different tune. I liked the interactions Link would have in this SNES prequel, but in Link's Awakening I just felt more connected with the strange and friendly characters, and I could see even from a wee young age that Nintendo worked their socks off to put as much love, care and attention into this 8-bit cart as they could. That's not to say I didn't enjoy Link to the Past, it's just Link's Awakening's story feels deeper, more psychological, fun and even touching, especially with Link's interactions with Marin. Top work, sword bloke, get in there my son. I enjoyed speaking to everyone from Tarin to the people in Animal Village, just excited about Marin bringing her Gloria Estefan tribute act to them. In fact, everybody on the island is just so interesting and it's a real pleasure to interact with all of them. I loved how SimCity's Mr. Right has a cameo in the game. He is located on the edge of the mysterious forest and is exchanging letters with Christine from Animal Village, and the fact Link gets to deliver Mr. Right's mail makes me feel a little bit like I'm Cilla Black. Right from the off, I was just so distracted by how well made Mabe Village was that I spent a lot of time just hanging around playing the crane game or wandering on the beach, and this had never really happened to me in A Link to the Past, where often I found the characters as cool as they were just didn't compare to the ones on Koholint Island. Some even get you to do little side quests for rewards, and some are just unlike any I have ever seen in a video game. Only in Link's Awakening do you get a woman called Madame Meow who has 2 pet chain chomps, or a croc obsessed with tin food. In fact, there are almost none of the original cast from Zelda apart from the enemies. Oh, and Kiki the monkey puts in a cheeky cameo later on in the game. Even some of the stuff you have to do, such as the trading sequence, or indeed figuring out how to swim or block a huge barrage of flames which are barring you from reaching the final dungeon, feels fresh and unique. I guess to truly understand where I'm coming from, you just have to play the game. It's also the first game without Zelda, the Triforce and I guess Ganon, and the events occurring on the island are indeed a whole new adventure. So it's probably obvious from what I'm saying that Koholint Island is very different. It certainly feels different, and there's a more relaxed but also challenging playstyle here. One thing that hasn't changed, however, is the ability to earn new weapons and abilities, and Nintendo have put pretty much nearly all the weapons that were in A Link to the Past in Link's Awakening, as well as a smattering of new ones too. Take the first dungeon for example, it's pretty standard stuff. There's a really cool new feature with the compass however, which now tells you if a key is in a room, something not available in A Link to the Past. And with this first dungeon being as easy as Eddie Easy on an EasyJet holiday to Easerton, old Link also picks up the Rock's Feather, which allows him to jump. Imagine that, jumping in a Zelda game. And as you make swift progress through many of the other dungeons, you'll pick up familiar weapons such as the Power Bracelet, Bow and Arrow, Flippers, Boomerang, Hookshot, Fire Rod, Mirror Shield, Pegasus Boots. Yes, you heard me, the freaking Pegasus Boots on Gameboy, which when used with the Rock's Feather makes Jonathan Edwards look like a choir boy. Plus the game does what all Zelda games do. Tell you what you need to do, but also at the same time let you go off on the beaten path and find hidden secrets and upgrades and just interact with everybody you can find. As you progress through the game, the dungeons honestly get much trickier, and I'm going to say it, they are much harder than the ones in A Link to the Past, and these later ones are certainly harder in this game. The solutions, although frustrating to figure out, will indeed leave you with a smile and a real eureka moment once you solve them. Take the Eagle's Tower for example. Now this one stung me many times when I was younger, as it changes the dungeon formula completely. Yes, you need to acquire keys, the dungeon weapon, and maps, etc. But you have to destroy 4 pillars using what looks like a moon pill. I can't confirm if this is a moon pill, but I'm willing to bet that someone at Nintendo put it in to remind the player of Link's past exploits. Now in hindsight this is actually pretty easy to figure out, but anyone who saw my recent Link's Awakening Eagle's Tower run will tell you I banged my head against the wall because I couldn't accomplish the task right away, and it took me about 3 or 4 hours where I had to really think outside the box to finally solve the tower. Once the pillars are destroyed, only then you can ascend to this boss, a giant freaking eagle. Also, like a nagging wife, the bosses talk to Link, threaten him before, during and after the fight, which was something that never really happened in A Link to the Past, apart from Ganon. Link's Awakening also allows the player to progress very steadily, offering at the very beginning a linear path with areas not yet accessible until Link has the right key, weapon or piece of equipment. Just like in Hyrule, there are secrets aplenty to find from hidden fairies, heart containers, rupee chests and this bloke here who returns to upgrade your bombs and arrows, tipping the balance of the game in your favour. Although again you will be cut off from most of the island as you play, you will always know why. The graphics are hands down amazing. Again, this is a Game Boy game and the developers made every part of Koholint Island look mysterious and exciting, and I like how you can go so far out of your way only to drop off a cliff and end up near the start of the section you were on. Koholint is way smaller than Hyrule, but I have to say it does feel almost as complex at times with its clever use of caves, passageways and progression. I loved Maid Village, Animal Village, the beach and the signpost maze. Seeing this all on Game Boy blew my tiny little mind, so whether you're playing this on an original monochrome Game Boy in colour or even on the remade Switch, you will have a blast. The look of the game seems and can feel quite simple, but there will be times when the game throws you a massive graphical surprise. Honestly, my eyes popped out of my head when I awoke the turtle outside Turtle Rock. Or when a cutscene appeared after I finally bested the Eagle's Tower and had to head up to take on the giant eagle. Or how about when Tarin was being chased by bees, or even turned into a raccoon. Nintendo spared no expense and everything is really clear and easy to see. I had no issues here whatsoever, and I simply cannot fault the game, nor would I want to. You have a map which slowly reveals the island as you move to new locations, and this is a good move, allowing you to try and figure out things for yourself. It is truly a visual treat, and I think what is also good is the individual look of each dungeon. You would think that the lack of colour in this first version would make everything look the same. Well, Nintendo worked tirelessly to not just repeat what they did on SNES and didn't let the lack of colours hold them back. These are all well drawn dungeons, and their puzzles are very visible and easy to see. Some puzzles even require Link to fall down holes to reach treasure chests inaccessible from the ground, or to find a hidden path which is not always visible to the player, so what it lacks in colour it more than makes up for in architecture and design. Well, the controls are actually very good despite there only being technically 2 buttons, A and B. Link has 2 slots and can assign a weapon or item, which is very handy indeed. Pressing select brings up the map and starts bringing up the inventory where you can select or deselect weapons and items. Actions are responsive, fair and fairly accurate, and, you know, just like a Zelda game should be. Link can swing his sword, block with his shield, and Nintendo didn't change the formula too much as they wanted Zelda veterans and new players to hit the ground running with ease. In fact, Nintendo added to the controls by allowing Link the power of jumping, which I mentioned earlier, and when you combine this with the Pegasus boots, and you can jump over larger gaps with the greatest of ease to access other parts of the island, or indeed dungeons. Also new to the series is the ability to visit a fishing pond in Maid Village and fish to earn rupees and a cheeky heart container. It's truly astonishing that Nintendo built upon this mechanic and included it in Ocarina of Time. Swimming, diving, running, walking and adventuring just feels intuitive and fun, and generally any mistakes you make are your own. I do have one little bugbear, and it's whenever you encounter a barrier that Link can't progress past, such as these weird rocks which require the use of the Pegasus boots. Now if you don't have the boots, then that's absolutely fine, as you are told by the game in a roundabout way that you can't progress past this point via a text box, which is fine. However, when I get the Pegasus boots and say I de-equip them for something else, and I just touch the rock, the same text box pops up. It does this with the power bracelet as well. It's like if you don't have it equipped or you don't have it at all, you are reminded constantly that you can't lift a large stone when you reach one. Now, I can totally understand why Nintendo kept this the way it was, as it does prompt the player constantly that they need said item to progress, and also helps with the game's pacing, but it can be a bit annoying at times. But really, that's only the one minor gripe I had with the game. In Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening will take over your life until you finish it. As a kid, I became so addicted to it that I didn't even want to go out. Whenever someone would tell me to switch off the Game Boy, go outside and play football, I resisted. I was just so into this game. From the moment I started it, it was all I would think about. Each new dungeon and situation brought about new challenges, risks and rewards, and what makes this game so playable is that Nintendo didn't just recycle a few bosses here and there, and if they did it sparingly and purposely. They changed and upgraded these bosses and made them totally different. Take the first boss in Dungeon 1, it's Moldome from A Link to the Past. He was the third boss in that game, and here he is, and he's just as challenging as ever. Whereas now, Link can use the Rock's Feather to jump and swipe its tail. The second boss is a genie clown in a bottle who taunts you over and over. I think one of the cleverest bosses was the giant Starfish in Catfish Mao. Now up until this point, it's been drilled into you that Link's Awakening ups the challenge by having you face sub-bosses midway through a dungeon. You encounter this sub-boss 4 times in this dungeon. However, what's clever about it is that there are 4 identical schoolrooms in the dungeon, and there's a particular order in which you visit each one. For example, if you find one of said rooms and the boss isn't in there, you need to visit another room in order to find and defeat him. So basically you need to do these 4 rooms in a certain order in order to beat him. In fact, he leaves a message inside a treasure chest which says, "I have what's in this chest, you need to beat me in order to get it." And your reward for beating the Starfish and for solving the cryptic puzzle is the hook shot, which is required to beat the slime eel and pick up the remaining chests that were seemingly inaccessible. It's these little diversions that keep the player coming back for more. Again, Nintendo could have just thrown out any old generic bosses, but they went all out on Game Boy. The rich storyline is woven so well, and I feel a lot more emotionally invested in the story than I ever did with A Link to the Past. With each new accomplishment on the island, the game throws in more mystery, and is actually a lot deeper, richer and more meaningful than its 16-bit brother. The game also keeps you playing again because of the colourful cast of characters Link encounters. Nintendo even gives you a trading sequence which takes place throughout most of the game, which starts after Link manages to win a Yoshi doll in Maid Village's crane game. The doll is swapped for a ribbon. The ribbon becomes canned food, the canned food becomes bananas, etc. Without ruining the game, it's imperative that you complete the trade sequence, as the item you gain becomes mandatory for finishing the game. And yeah, okay, you could just Google the answers, but where would the fun be in that? Of course, I have to mention again the secrets. Sometimes a wall is visibly cracked and you can bomb it open. Other times the wall has no indication it can be bombed, and so using your sword and tapping the suspicious area results in a sound that is different in tone, revealing a secret room. Sometimes this method is necessary to get through a dungeon after exhausting other possibilities, and the frantic, frustrating nature dissipates once this seems to be the solution. Finally, I must mention the debut of the greatest instrument in the game that Link gets his paws on, and that's the ocarina. That's right, this game predates Ocarina of Time as the very first appearance of said instrument, and Link must learn 3 songs here from 3 individuals to help him progress further in his journey. Once you have it, you will realise that sooner or later there's a lot of power in these 3 songs that will have some amazing effects on the living and the dead. Also, right out of left field, Link can also find seashells which are scattered throughout Koholint Island, and if he can collect enough of these, he gets a sword upgrade. So it's almost like the game gives him the Master Sword in a very unique way. There's just so much to see and do in this game, and I found myself totally immersed in this unique Zelda experience. Link's Awakening is probably one of the best games ever to come out on the original Game Boy, and maybe one of the best Zelda games ever. And I'm going to say it again, I honestly feel that it's better than A Link to the Past. Again, had I played A Link to the Past first, then perhaps my opinion would be different. The fact that Nintendo crafted such a special, unique adventure that keeps things familiar but also fresh is just astounding to me. Nintendo made the right call by focusing solely on Link and taking Zelda and Ganon out of the equation, although their presence is still felt and hinted at somewhat within the confines of the game, with little pieces of power and some familiar boss patterns too. I highly recommend that if you've not to play this classic game, then please do so. On the surface it looks quite simple, but it does deliver a deep and enriching experience that will keep you engaged for hours, and it's an experience that you will never ever forget.